Day three of Lions training camp featured the Sun God and the Lions offense going on an absolute tear. Plus, we got a little bit of a look at what the Lions defense may look like if CJGJ ends up being on the mend for the long term. We're going to talk about all of that and more right now. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit Training Camp Observation. I'm Miko, and we are going to go through the biggest news, takeaways, and observations from day three of Lions training camp. Now, unlike the other 2 days of training camp where we've had to focus on injuries, today we get to focus on a lot of positive things that came out of day three of the Lions training camp, specifically looking at the offensive side of the football, where wide receiver Amon-Ra St Brown was an absolute demon. He absolutely terrorized the Lions secondary in just about every facet of today's practice, whether it was him beating Jerry Jacobs on a deep route for what looked like a pretty big gain in the highlight that the Lions posted on their social media, or him beating Cam Sutton on numerous plays in the red zone for touchdowns, or even making a very impressive grab between Brian Branch and Tracy Walker for another impressive touchdown grab. Amon-Ra seemed to be on a mission today, and that mission was basically to let us, the fans, and probably everyone else on the team know that he is him, that we should all bow down and hail the sun god, because he is clearly on a mission this season, which he even referenced when talking to the media, where he kind of even hinted that, like, yo, he's heard some of the chatter about him. And I'm probably guessing that he's focusing mostly on those that have questioned whether or not he's a top 10 wide receiver, or whether he deserves to be in the conversation with some of the elite wide receivers in the NFL. And if the way that he is going about practice is any indication, if Amon-Ra St. Brown is able to continue the trajectory that he's been on his first 2 years in the league, and play and take this same level of competitiveness into the season like he's continued to do, the rest of the NFL absolutely needs to watch out, because he is definitely coming in a big way, and he's making it known that, listen, he is going to terrorize anyone who lines up against him, and he's going to be almost unguardable in a lot of situations, because he's such a master at working off the line, and we know what he's able to do once he gets into the middle of the field. Now, going into this offseason, he obviously was, campaigning to Ben Johnson to be able to get more opportunities, down the field, and so we may even still continue to see aspects of that part of his game, evolve throughout the season. But clearly, Amon-Ra wants to do more, and he wants to prove that he's that top tier level of wide receiver. And today was a huge step forward in basically making that claim loud and clear to anybody who hadn't heard it already. Now, Amon-Ra was not the only one making plays today during training camp. Sam LaPorta continues to add fuel to his hype train as he continues to just stack good day after good day here in training camp. Once again, Sam LaPorta went out there and had a 2 touchdown day, grabbing a touchdown from both Jared Goff and Nate Sudfeld. And he's really making it hard for me as a fan, and I'm sure for many of you as well, to try to keep our expectations in check. Listen, we all know how difficult it is for tight ends to transition to the NFL game, and typically they're not utilized a whole lot depending on the team that they're going to. But under an offense with Ben Johnson, who specializes in being able to get guys open and utilize them in ways that keeps his entire offense fluid and unpredictable, it's really hard to not expect Sam LaPorta to start week one and to be a heavy, you know, favorite of Jared Goff's when it comes to the passing game. We know, and we just talked about how good Amon-Ra is and what type of tear he might be on once the season starts. But don't sleep on Sam LaPorta. He may be a low-key offensive rookie of the year candidate. And I know that's rare to say for a tight end, but the way he has been progressing through training camp, and the way he just continues to rise and stack good day on top of good day, is a really good reason to kind of feel confident about his ability to go into the regular season and have that same type of success. Now, if there is any reason to pull back, and I kind of mentioned this yesterday during my observation, it's that a lot of this stuff isn't happening with pads on. And we have to definitely see how Sam LaPorta handles the physicality of the NFL once these linebackers are able to put a body on him, once these safeties are able to be a little more physical with him. I'm not saying that Sam LaPorta is going to fold, but even Dan Campbell pointed out that, hey, what they're seeing in their rookies is encouraging. They're stacking up good days atop of good days. But once they put pads on, he even indicated that it's going to be like starting over and they're going to have to, again, start stacking good days on top of good days. Listen, super excited about Sam LaPorta. I'm trying to keep my excitement and try to keep this hype train in check, but he is making it extremely difficult, and it's only going to make, my expectations for him once the regular season comes that much higher. Now, outside of Sam LaPorta and Amon-Ra, another person that was having a really good day on the offensive side of the football, specifically at the receiver position, was wide receiver Maurice Alexander. And Maurice Alexander was able to get 2 touchdown passes from Nate Sudfeld, and as someone who was kind of battling at the bottom end of the roster, these are nothing but good signs for Maurice Alexander, who obviously saw himself being utilized in kick return duties last year. But if he can show that he's also able to be a threat in the passing game as possibly a, security wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 type of situation, that can be nothing but good things for him. But more specifically, Nate Sudfeld has been continuing a really impressive, performance in training camp up to this point, and probably capping it with one of his best days today, based on the reports that are coming out of training camp today. I mean, his performance has been so impressive that those who are there watching practice have basically kind of indicated that it doesn't seem like there's a big drop off from the first team to the second team as far as efficiency with from the quarterback position. And I got to be honest, I can't remember the last time we were getting positive news about the QB2 position. And if anything, if Nate Sudfeld is able to continue this level of, efficiency and and instill this level of confidence into the coaching staff, that news that we, all heard yesterday about how Teddy Bridgewater was in Detroit, on an official visit, might not really go anywhere because the Lions might feel that confident in Nate Sudfeld. Now, if I were to play a little bit of devil's advocate, I would say that bringing in Teddy Bridgewater may still be a good idea, simply for the simple fact that Teddy is a more, established veteran and has clearly played in more NFL games and has clearly shown what it takes to win games in the event that your starting quarterback goes down. With that said, though, the way Nate is currently playing in training camp, like I said earlier, is probably enough to at least keep that, or at least make that decision more difficult for Dan Campbell and the rest of his staff. We all know that Dan really likes Teddy Bridgewater. He's had nothing but positive things to say about him. But if Nate continues to show great command of the offense, I don't think there's any reason to rock the boat and bring in another quarterback and potentially have to give up more money on your salary cap for a guy just to do leadership things. Now, switching over to the defensive side of the football, we obviously spent a good amount of time in yesterday's observation talking about the injury to Chauncey Gardner Johnson. But today we kind of got to see how the Lions plan on attacking that situation, as Chauncey's clearly going to be on the mend and at least going to be sitting out a few practices. Dan Campbell went as far as that he may only be out a few days. Now, whether it's literally a few days or a little bit longer, we'll have to wait and see. But what the Lions plan on doing in the meantime is very evident. Dan Campbell went as far as to say once the injury occurred yesterday, his first thought process was, okay, Will Harris has to go in. And that's essentially how they addressed it today on day 3 of training camp. Will Harris was the first one out in the nickel spot for the Lions defense. And for the most part, Will Harris did a pretty good job. He had a nice, pass breakup, or not pass breakup, but at least a good pass defense against Amon-Ra, keeping him out of the end zone, basically bringing him down at probably the 1 or 2 yard line. Now, when things switched over to like the red zone drills, we actually saw Will Harris get subbed out for Brian Branch in these situations, which is very telling considering, again, Brian Branch is a rookie, but him getting those first team reps, as well as since still continuing to get his second team reps and even being worked in with the third team, is actually a really good sign that the Lions are trying to get him as much experience and trying to almost fast track his way into becoming a bigger part of his defense. And to this point, Brian Branch has answered the call with the coaching staff putting this much confidence in him by continuing to make plays on the defensive side of the football. And I mean, he even had another pass breakup in today's practice. So Brian Branch is clearly showing that he has that versatility, and the Lions are willing to stretch things out with him and see how far that versatility goes. He and Will Harris both, as they actually work them into some linebacker drills today, which is one of the things that I'm most intrigued to see from this defense this upcoming season is various situations where maybe instead of going two linebacker, they go a linebacker and an additional defensive back, whether that be Brian Branch, CJ GJ, or Will Harris if the situation may call upon it. Again, Brian Branch is a rookie, and there in some form or fashion, we should definitely keep our expectations in check. But again, like Sam LaPorta, when a guy is continuing to get reps and continuing to almost be fast tracked in his learning, it's really difficult to just look at a player and say, you know what, he may only be used in emergency situations. At this point, I'm a full believer that Brian Branch is actually going to have a pretty big role on this defense come week 1. Now, the final takeaway that I had from today's practice, and I had to ask Jeremy and Eric about this, was what the energy is like at practice when it comes to the coaching staff. The last few years, when the Lions had both Aaron Glenn and Deuce Staley, all we ever heard about was how competitive those two guys were and how that competitiveness kind of radiated throughout the rest of the team throughout practice. Well, now that Deuce is in Carolina and it's only Aaron Glenn, I was really curious on, hey, has that energy kind of changed or have other guys stepped up to bring some level of intensity to practice from the coaching staff? Because we obviously know what the defensive backs, have been doing and how they've been more vocal in practice. But I was really curious about how things have been, different with the coaching staff now that Deuce isn't there. And according to Jeremy, while Scott Montgomery is no Deuce Staley, there has still been a good amount of energy. Ben Johnson, Randall L, and Aaron Glenn are still very loud and they're still very much bringing the juice every day to practice, which again is an added bonus to a team like the Lions, where again, it's all about buying and it's all about all of these guys kind of being able to count on each other. And this coaching staff being able to bring that intensity into practice is can't be nothing but a benefit to the team as a whole. So with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this Pride of Detroit training camp observation. If you have any additional questions or there's more information that you're looking for, please be sure to head over to prideofdetroit.com or check out the Pride of Detroit podcast that Jeremy and Eric are currently doing right after training camp to get more insight into what is actually happening at Lions training camp. You can actually find links to both of those things in the description below. Also, be sure to leave a comment. And if you're new to this channel, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can be notified anytime we upload a video or anything new on the channel. Also, be sure to check out our Twitch channel so that you can catch anytime we do a live stream and get more interaction with the people over here at Pride of Detroit. I appreciate you guys taking the time to check out the channel. I'll catch you in the next one.